Welcome back. In this class, we're going to look at approach to evaluating risks and assumptions. And we're going to learn how can we include a specific risk and a specific assumptions into the design of our project. The basic approach to evaluating risks and assumption is to identifying both likelihood of them happening. For example, for risk, is there a likelihood of having a earthquake? Because that is something that can, of course, impact our project. So we are looking at the likelihood, and we are also looking at the negative impact of this occurrence. So if we are looking at the earthquake, is it likely? Then if it is very unlikely, then there is no need of having it in our project, this is the risk that we want to be monitoring. Then if it is also having very small impact, that is negative impact on our project, then we are also not going to monitor it closely. So we are not going to have it in our framework of monitoring risks. Great. A question to ask when assessing risk. So we are going to ask a question like, will this risk affect our ability to meet our project objective? So we have said the impact, the negative impact of this risk. So if it is yes, so after identifying all the possible risks, it has to have passed this checklist. Will this risk affect our ability to meet the project objective? How likely is this risk to occur? And then how serious would it impact our project? Can something be done to reduce this risk? So I had one of my students asking a question like, if for example the stakeholders or the community is against the program, is against the project, so how do I be able to carry out this project? So that is one of the risks, that community will protest against the project that you're coming up with. So if that happens, what can we do? So we are going to look at it in this class. How can we be prepared to respond to this problem? So we have to, when we say this problem will going to happen, likely to happen, then it has serious impact, then we have to be now respond to this problem. So how are we going to respond to this problem? So these are the things that you have to have while having your project or risk of the project in design. All right, so how can we decide which risks and assumptions to take into consideration in our project? So we are going to use again another decision tree to approach choosing assumptions and risks to be monitored. A decision tree is a decision support tool, of course, just like the way that we have seen in the problem analysis, that uses tree-like graph of decisions. Their possible consequences include the chances of it occurring, resource costs, and utility. Decision trees are helpful in determining whether an assumption or risk is important in meal approach. So let's look at the decision tree that we can have. All right. In this tree, you can see, is the assumption here, is the assumption important, or is this risk important? Will this risk affect our, will it affect or impact our outcome? So if it is yes, then will it hold true, like high unlikely? So it is like, it is very unlikely for this event to occur. It is almost impossible for this risk or assumptions to occur. Possibly, it can be possibly occurring, or almost certain that this will occur. All right. When you have, is this assumption important? No. So when this assumption is not important, or if it is high and likely to occur, then we are going to do not include it in your framework. So when it is either unlikely to occur or it is not important, then do not include it in your logic framework. So it is not very complex things, but again, you have to consider all these aspects. Is it important? Is it likely to occur? All right. Then let's say it is possibly occurring. So if it is possibly occurring, then include an assumption in logic framework. Then almost certainly. So if you are sure that a risk is going to occur, what would you do? For example, if you are sure that I'm sure you're not going to take this at at some level, but let's say you're coming up with a law, or you're creating a program that would ask the communities that they should embrace LGBTQ. So if you are having such project, it is almost certainly from the analysis of the data that, for example, in Kenya, and from the analysis of the data that you can see from the media, that people are against LGBTQ. So if you're coming and having the certainty that people will against it, what would you do? So you have two options. Is possible to redesign this project in order to mitigate this factor? So that is the question that you're going to ask yourself. If it is high certainly or almost certainly the risk will occur, can you redesign? If yes, redesign the project as necessary by altering high-level goals. So twist your goals by detracting certain activities, avoid certain activities that would lead to the project goal because you have already redesigned your project in a way, and then activities or result by adding different ones. So come up with different activities or design to achieve your result. Then if it is impossible to redesign this project, that is when we say no, then project may not be feasible as planned. So you cannot go on with this project with your current plan. Then it is not feasible project. So you have to consider all this to make decisions on your risk. So when you are at this position one, of course, unlikely and not important, then you avoid it. When it is possibly happening, you include it in an assumption. So when you are in this level, we are going to need what we call risk monitoring framework that will evaluate everything within your risk. Maybe is it internal or external risk? What are the indicators, sources of the data, how do we mitigate it, and also who will be responsible for this risk. Coming up, we're going to look at risk monitoring framework. I hope this class is helpful. Thank you and enjoy learning.